I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and today we're going to go on see a little bit of history dealing with the state of Virginia and the District of Columbia. The whole basis for this show is a Stan Hewitt trip organized and led by Neil Cheemer last September. That would be September of 1999. We're going to come into the area up in here from Maryland, and we're going to go down here this is the Shenandoah National Park along here, and we're going down in the valley. We're coming down to here, cross the mountains and cross the Blue Ridge. This is Charlottesville. That's going to be our first stop, a major one. Then we're coming over here to Richmond. That's a major stop, and then down into this area, Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown. Then we're going to go back up here, not stopping at Richmond this time, and go to Fredericksburg, and then up and cross in, and this is Washington, D.C., and then we'll head back the same way. That's the basic approach for it. Now, there were a few things that I'll point out that we did not see on the tour that I had seen from earlier times. This one is very historic. This is on the eastern side of Charlottesville. This is Shadwell, where Thomas Jefferson was born. And that's all you can see because the house burned down while he was still alive, and that's when he first moved over to Monticello. And this is Monticello, his dream home. It's a beautiful place. And this is all Albemarle County, and Monticello is just out to the east of Charlottesville, Virginia. Just a beautiful place. Now, when we go inside, those will not be my pictures. I have 6 of them, but you're not allowed to photograph in there, so I have to make my own slides from people like American Heritage and Geographic and anybody else that's got a good picture that illustrates it. But I really like to show audiences something of the inside of Monticello because of little things like this guy up on the wall here, these antlers. Those are from the Lewis and Clark expedition. And there's a number of things in Monticello from that expedition. This is that famous bed that everybody looks at it and they don't see how Jefferson could have slept in it, but it is a lot longer than it really looks. And if you look beyond it, you see a telescope. That was his little observatory room. You're not allowed upstairs at Monticello, probably because of the staircases. Jefferson didn't believe in giving you much room on the stairs. He invented the polygraph, and at least I'm sure he did. Because he did so much correspondence, and he wanted to keep a copy of everything he wrote, so he rigged it up himself, and that's how it came to be. This is one of the rooms, and a lot of fireplaces, and the rooms are very interesting there at Monticello, but they have one fireplace, not that one you just looked at. This is in another room, and the piece that you are looking at on this end is the wine carrier. Today we call them the dumbwaiter, but this brought wine up that was loaded down in the basement, brought it up into the house proper. And then this is the library as it exists today. Jefferson's original library was sold to the Library of Congress after the British burned the library in the War of 1812. Now, when we go outside, you can, from certain places on fairly clear day, and this one wasn't all that clear, but over in the distance you can see the rotunda of the University of Virginia in downtown Charlottesville. And of course, that's the university that Jefferson built. Now Jefferson thought this is one of the outbuildings from the main house. There's one on the other side too, and there are a couple more around. And this is the kitchen under the house. See, all of these places I'm able to photograph. It's only inside that I can't photograph. And some of the detail of the front of it. Jefferson wrote quite a few words, and he wrote these words in 1786 to Marie Causeway. This was an artist friend. He met her in Paris, but she was from England. And this is what he said. "And our own dear Monticello, where has nature spread so rich a mantle under the eye? Mountains, forests, rocks, rivers. With what majesty do we there ride above the storms? How sublime to look down into the workhouse of nature, to see her clouds, hail, snow, rain, thunder, all fabricated at our feet. And the glorious sun, when rising as if out of a distant water, just gilding the tops of the mountains and giving life to all nature." If you're not sure of it, this is the seed cone, I would call it, of a magnolia. Not the southern magnolia. It is a brown cone. This is a reddish one, so it's a different magnolia. But what a place. These views are all around the lawn and the flower beds skirting around. And we're almost into his garden now, and this is that ridge on the end of Monticello. Gives you an idea about the hills and ridges and valleys of Albemarle County. And now into the garden. Mr. Jefferson really loved his garden and these plants, and he said so. This that you're seeing, this old chimney, is the ruins of an old joinery. See, they did their own work here, and a joinery would put wood together, make a big plank out of several small planks, that type of thing, and would probably also do the angle cuts and the joining there too. But it's right on the edge of the garden. For viewers, I have a problem with this picture. I do not know what the plant is. I've asked several audiences and nobody has come up with what it is. I guess I'll have to go back down to Monticello and ask them. But the gardens are real neat. Here's what he said about gardens. "No occupation is so delightful to me as the culture of the earth, and no culture comparable to the garden." These are, this is a little vineyard right in the lower part of the garden. And this is where one of the outbuildings used to be. I think somebody used to live in this one, but that's all that's left today. And if you look off in the distance here, you can see his Blue Ridge Mountains that he loved so much. And now we've moved, we're almost ready to leave, and I have you down in the cemetery where Jefferson is buried. And here is the marker where he lies. True to his desires, no mention of the presidency was put on his tombstone. The epitaph is just as he wrote it. Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. Now, our tour did not take us down to the University of Virginia, but I wanted to put these pictures in just so that you can see the grandeur of that place. And this out in front of the rotunda is a statue of Thomas Jefferson. But it's quite a place. He modeled it after the Pantheon in Rome. And the library is up under the top there. This is one of the rooms inside. And if you were a good student at the University of Virginia, you get to live out in one of these areas on just behind the rotunda. And it is considered quite an honor to spend your student days living there. And then Mr. Jefferson liked the serpentine walls. Not only did they take full advantage of the brick, but they gave you little places where you could put plants, do flower beds and that type of thing, and of course he always liked that. Now while we're still at the University of Virginia, it was Mr. Jefferson that said, if you expect a people to be ignorant and free, you expect what never was and never will be. And that's why he probably considered the creation of the University of Virginia as his finest achievement, maybe even more than the Declaration of Independence. Now we've moved over to Richmond, the capital. And yes, this is an Egyptian picture here, because the first place we went is to Splendors of Egypt exhibit at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Now, you're not allowed to photograph in there, so what you're going to see, you're only going to see 4 things, and they're all from the brochures that you got there. This relief offering that you saw there, the first one was back to 2540 BC. Now, these are strange jars here. This is a set of canoric jars, and this goes back to the 5th to the 4th century BC. What these are, you would take the lid off, and if you were embalming somebody, preparing them for burial, you would put their vital organs in these jars. Great, huh? I had never seen this thing before, the one on the left there. I have been to Egypt and have seen the Sphinx, but this is all that's left of the model. The Sphinx goes back to 2500 BC, and it's right in the area by the Great Pyramid and the other 2. The Great Pyramid is Cyclops, and the next one is Cephren, his son. And the Sphinx face is supposed to be the face of Cephren. And then I saw this beautiful cobra. Those are cobras at the top on this headpiece. This was in the very last exhibit room before we left. And somebody had this picture in a brochure they bought. So I don't have a date on this. I would say probably 500 BC or something of that nature, but I don't know for sure. And then while in Richmond, we went over, as you should, to the capital of Virginia at Richmond. And the middle part here, not these 2 sides to the right and left, but the middle part here is the part that was designed by Thomas Jefferson. But before you go in, you might as well have a look at the George Washington statue here, and it has statues all around the base of it as well. Here is, it depends on the day and what the background looks like. Sometimes you have to photograph this and settle for a silhouette. Other times, like this, you can see some of the detail. But one of the things on the base, one of the statues on the base is Thomas Jefferson, this one. And the Capitol again, and now we will be going in. Now inside here, in the old Senate chamber, this is in the part that Jefferson designed, were 2 paintings. They let you photograph. And this was the only thing that I found, worthy of photography, was this painting, and the other one I'll show you. But first, this one. This is 3 ships at Jamestown. The Susan Constant is that big one in the middle, and the Godspeed is the one on the right, and the Discovery is the one on the left. Now, I'm sure you will not remember those, but you will recall that I told you about them when we get over to Jamestown. The Discovery will not be there, but you will see the replicas of the Susan Constant and the Godspeed. So I was lucky I took that picture. And then this picture is the Revolutionary War at Yorktown. This was done in 1840, and this was taking one of the, they call them redoubts. It's sort of a hillside where you got to put your cannons there, and then you could fire on the enemy at Yorktown, just in the days preceding Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. Then when you're going from there over to the old house chamber, you go through, I suppose you call it a rotunda here also, and under that, right under the dome, is this statue of George Washington by Houdon. I think that's French, and I hope I'm pronouncing it somewhere close, but this is probably the most famous statue of George Washington in the entire world. This one right in the capital of Virginia. And then we moved on over to the old house chamber, and here's a statue of Robert E. Lee. You have to understand this was also the capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, so you see a lot of Confederate things. I was glad that I got the picture of the shaft here, because 2 months later a lady asked me if it was there when I was there, and then I showed her this picture, and she said it's gone. She didn't know where it was gone to, but it was gone. And what we found out for the very first time was this chamber, the old house chamber where that statue of Robert E. Lee is the very chamber where Aaron Burr was tried for treason, right here in Virginia. Then another couple of pictures that I took from the outside. I took them a little later on during the tour when we got back to the Capitol, but this is what the front of it looks like. And the front also was designed by Thomas Jefferson. Now, real close by is the old City Hall that they're real proud of the restoration that they have done of it. That's the outside, not just put in one picture on the inside so that you can see the pains that they are taking, that they have taken, I should say, to the restoration of the detail as well. Now we're going on a bus tour, our bus with a Richmond person guiding our driver, and we're going around Richmond itself. First stop, it's raining now, but anyhow, this is St. John's Church. And St. John's Church is most known for it being the site where Patrick Henry gave his, for the first time, gave his give me liberty or give me death speech. The steeple was not there at the time that Patrick Henry did his speaking. It was just this back part that you see in this photograph. The steeple is off to the left. I kept it out of the picture deliberately. All this part. And then you might wonder why I put a gravestone in here. But if you can see it, you can see that that is the gravestone of George Wyeth. And George Wyeth, we will see his house down at Williamsburg. But he was the first law professor in the entire United States. He was the first Virginia signer of the Declaration of Independence. And here's a biggie, he was the teacher of Thomas Jefferson. Richmond is sort of the center of a national battlefield park headquarters, part of the National Park Service. And since I can't really show you much of the battlefield, I'm just showing you the building that everything is headquartered in. And not too far from that, a couple of views of the James River. And this will be the same river that we see when we get down to Jamestown. Kind of hard navigating through there. You can navigate up to Richmond, but that's about it, just barely to Richmond. In the foreground, looks like there used to be a bridge there, and then on up you can see some rapids. There's a slight reflection in the sky because I took it out of the bus window. And then they wanted to show us some real elegance before we left the city. So the last stop was the Thomas Jefferson Hotel. Thomas Jefferson would have been stunned by the beauty of this place. It really is quite nice. And under a dome up at the top of those stairs is this statue of Jefferson. And then here's the dome. And then if I swing from where I took the picture of the statue and look towards the exit, the entrance, this is what you see, a very, very beautiful place. Now, in 1800, when Jefferson was running for the presidency against John Adams, he used these famous words: "I've sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." And then in a letter to John Adams in 1816, after their years-long feud had been patched up, Thomas Jefferson said, "I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past." A French nobleman once said of Thomas Jefferson that he had placed his house and his mind on an elevated situation from which he might contemplate the universe. And now we're going to move down the James River to Jamestown Settlement. Now you have to understand, Jamestown Settlement is not the site of the old Jamestown. I will show you that site. But this is sort of a recreation by the state of Virginia. And that's what they've done over in Yorktown. And they have a beautiful building that houses all sorts of memorabilia and papers that they have. And this is especially true at Yorktown. But this is not the original site. But what we're in is a Powhatan village. I never pronounced it that way before, but that's the way they tell me it goes. And you get to go in one of the buildings there, and here are the baskets that probably contain corn and stuff hanging from the top. And they had a fire going in September. And then outside there were two young ladies dressed as Indians burning a canoe out of a log. And here's one that's already been done. These things must have been heavy as lead, especially if you had to portage around anything. But that's where they are. That's what they are. And some skins hanging there. And then you keep on walking to that, right on behind these skins there's a pathway, and you get over to the river, and that's where the boats are. Now this is the Susan Constant back here. That's the biggie, and this is the Godspeed right here. And as I mentioned when I showed you that picture in the Capitol at Richmond, the Discovery would not be here. It was they're taking it down the river. And you can see in the back, or right almost in the middle, a passing boat on the, looks like a ferry boat on the James River. And this is the one that you can go aboard, or you could at the time we were there. This is the Godspeed. So any close-ups, including this picture with the British flag on top, is of the Godspeed. And that point over there, and this is taken with a long lens from right by that boat, that point over there is where the original Jamestown settlement was. I don't know how you are about chickens, but I think they make a pretty good picture with that kind of fence behind them. You're going to see some turkeys when we get over to Yorktown as well. Now we're going into what is known as the James Fort. These are all recreated now. Even the church, and I'll show you the inside of the church, is a recreation. And this was a stockaded fort. I think I do show you a fire going here. This is the inside of the church. Yeah, there's a cooking fire. Now we're gonna see just these few more buildings, and then we're gonna make our way over to Williamsburg. See, we spent the night at Williamsburg. As a matter of fact, within a mile of this place, which is the governor's palace. Now at Williamsburg, everything has been either reconstructed or redone. If there was enough left that they could work with, they just kept on restoring it. If it wasn't, they found out where the foundation had been and what it looked like, and there were drawings, and so they could be able to recreate it. Tremendous amount of the money, most of it as a matter of fact, for all of the work at Williamsburg you see today, came from the Rockefellers. John D. Rockefeller Jr. is the one that funneled the money. He's not the one that made it, but he's the one that funneled it into Williamsburg. Now we're going into Governor's Palace, and I just simply call this the entrance parlor. I don't know if that's what they call it or not, but you know, you take these pictures and you get home and you have to identify all of them. Right inside, as you step inside, you look up and you see this above you, and all of those are guns, probably working guns at one time. And this is one of the bedrooms. Some of the pictures inside, I always try some, but some of them don't always turn out that good. I can't believe that this is the dining room unless they really put a lot more tables in it than just that. But they did call it the dining room. And I call this one, where you get to see our guide, I call this one the blue room. And then we went outside, and I'll show you a little bit of the garden. We went out opposite that main entrance that you saw in the first picture of the governor's mansion. So this garden is then behind it. And this is where the British governor lived until he fled as the revolution, as steps towards the revolution took place and the revolution began. Now we've gone out, and I mentioned that I would show you the George Wyeth house. I don't know whether this was a complete reconstruction or whether this was restored, but this is George Wyeth house, and he is the one I was telling you about at the grave at St. John's Church over in Richmond. A little further down on that same street, but also fronting on the Duke of Gloucester Street, is Bruton Parish Church. And they did let me take a picture inside, and this is what it looks like. They still have services here. People get married here and so forth. And then as we're back out on the Duke of Gloucester Street, that's the main street going right down to the Capitol. And this is the powder magazine there. And you're going to hear the word tavern quite a bit. There are a lot of taverns in Williamsburg. And this is Chowing's Tavern here. Further on down, we're going to see the famous one, the Raleigh Tavern. But from a previous visit to Williamsburg without the leaves on the trees, I got this picture looking right straight down the Duke of Gloucester street to the Capitol, and you can see it better there, and that's why I dipped back into my pictures. This is the John Anderson House, and then we have another tavern, the Brick House Tavern. A number of these places you can actually eat today. You can get your meal right here. And this is Weatherburn's Tavern. Another older view without the leaves on the trees of the Duke of Gloucester Street. And on down those white buildings off to the right, you will see this place, which is the Raleigh Tavern. Now, the Raleigh Tavern figured very strongly in the life of Jefferson. Much of his discussions with people and learning and all took place right in this Apollo room of the Raleigh Tavern. Then across the street is the King's Arm Tavern, followed by Shields Tavern. Now, in this one, this is Shields Tavern, and then John Coke is here, his office, and the one I've already shown you, the King's Arm Tavern, is down there. Now we're going on down to the Capitol this time, and I have 4 pictures, including one inside picture of the tavern. This is probably the prettiest one because of the sky, but there's the British flag flying off of that as it did long years ago. And inside, I just left this in to show you the richness of the woodwork inside the Capitol. They apparently spared no expense to make it really neat. Now, this is over on the next street that runs parallel to the Duke of Gloucester Street, on Nicholson Street, and this is the Coke Garrett house here. But behind the Capitol, before we get away from the Capitol, is the Christina Campbell's Tavern across the way there. And these two people, and many of the people that work for the Williamsburg, I suppose it's a foundation, I'm not really sure, they are in dress of the period. And so these people are at the Golden Ball Jewelry and Engraving shop. Now we're going over onto that Nicholson Street, paralleling it. For many years they said nothing about slavery at Williamsburg, and now they're trying to really explain and talk about slavery, why it was and whatever about it. And so this is one of the places. This is a tenant house over on Nicholson Street. And I really took this picture for the carriage and the driver, but you might as well know that that's the Taylor house in the background. And then this one is one you definitely should go into. This is the Peyton Randolph house. This is one of the well-known ones, and Peyton Randolph was one of the leaders of the day. This is inside the dining room in that house. And then you go out the back and you find yourself on North England Street, which comes right into Nicholson. And this is the Robinson Windmill. And then I noticed right behind the Peyton Randolph house, they were working. And I almost kept this picture out of the set, but I realized they were using all of the old methods to do the woodworking here. I'm not sure what they're building, but it will be put together with pegs and the like. And then back on Nicholson Street is the St. George Tucker house. And then we wandered away back over to the Duke of Gloucester Street, and this is one of the gardens there. There are many gardens along that street, that one especially. And then before we left Williamsburg, we wanted to go over to the William and Mary College. This is where Jefferson went to school. There were only 3 buildings there when he went to school. This is a weather vane on the top of the Wren building. Now, Christopher Wren, if he had any influence on the design of this building at all, it had to be through his students. He had nothing to do directly with the design of the Christopher Wren building. That little guy that you're looking at is a mockingbird, and we're over now at the Yorktown Victory Center. And remember, I said this is a recreation of things by the state of Virginia. And we had been so serenaded by mockingbirds when I got a good picture of one, and his throat is extended in singing, that I figured I better leave it in there. It was an omen or something. Back behind the building where you can see all of the papers and artifacts and everything, they have set up a Continental Army encampment with the sleeping tents there. And then right behind this area is saltwater marsh. So you can see you're very close to Chesapeake Bay. Out to your left would be the York River. Over to the right, a number of miles, would be the James River. And then this is the eating area here, the open tent area. And here's some of the, well, I don't know if they ate that. That looks more like medicine. Let me go on to the next picture, and I think that might sort of look like food. Well, it looks like food, but it doesn't look too appetizing to me, but anyhow. And then they were cooking food in this mound of earth. They had started it, and I suppose you could get a nice hot burn in there in a fairly constant heat. So that's what was being used. And then there was this neat little cabin. But when you go in the cabin, you're going to wonder, it couldn't have been that clean when it was actually used. But on the way, here's what I found, turkeys. He looks like a classic turkey. See how clean it is? I'm sure it wasn't too clean when it was used. And then I took this picture of the lady breaking ground out in the garden, and then after I had taken it, I walked over and talked to her, and she says, oh, it's you know, the time of year, I really enjoy this, beating up in the earth and planting stuff. And then here's some of the morning glories growing there. And as we were making our way back to the bus then, I looked around a couple of times, and I liked the rail fence in that same little house back there. And if you have never seen southern crepe myrtle, this is it. This is the one that's called watermelon red. And as I was stepping on the bus, I swung around and I saw this one, I saw the rail fence and the house, and then one stalk of corn. And then, because we did not go to actually see it, I wanted you to see about the Yorktown battlefield here. You remember in the Capitol we saw the taking of that one redoubt, and here's the Yorktown battlefield, and here is the surrender grounds at Yorktown. And the British came in with a slow and solemn march into this field and laid down their arms. And then here's the Victory Monument at Yorktown. Now we're going to swing on up to a place that changed hands a number of times in the Civil War. This was where George Washington's mother lived, and George Washington himself lived in Fredericksburg a number of years. That symbol was right on somebody's shopping bag. And this is Carolyn Street, and this is where we ate lunch, a little shop over to the right here. Good soup and sandwich places. Now, I will not know all the places here because this was all a bus tour. But here are a couple of frame houses that look pretty good. My wife and I have been back to Fredericksburg since that time, and we have been able to go over to Chatham, which is one of the main, it's part of the National Park Service, it's one of the main residents here, and it is across the Rappahannock River from Fredericksburg, but you get a good view back of Fredericksburg. So I'll just take you down through a little part of this. This is the Thomas Jefferson Religious Freedom Monument, which is very meaningful. And here is Mary Washington's grave and monument. She was the mother of George Washington, and as I mentioned, she lived right here in Fredericksburg. And then here was a real friend of George Washington. This is Hugh Mercer. He was a Revolutionary War hero, and he was killed at the Battle of Princeton over in New Jersey. He had been with Washington, I think, in the crossing of the Delaware and the attack on the Hessians at Trenton. This particular one I just have labeled as a gray house, a very stately one. Some neat houses here in Fredericksburg. And this is Kenmore Plantation and Gardens, and this is another one that my wife and I have since been in. We did not go in on this particular trip. And then as we're making our way over towards the battlefield wall, here's another one with a widow's walk on top. And here's the famous battlefield wall, Civil War, of course. Here is the Richard Kirkland Memorial. He was a South Carolina volunteer, and he gave water to both Confederate and Union soldiers who had been wounded. And it was such an unselfish act that they made a memorial to Richard Kirkland. And here is the Rappahannock River as we're making our way up to D.C. Now, the racing shell that you're going to see here is quite another river. This is the Potomac River at Alexandria. We got a kick out of watching these kids training for probably a race sometime. Now, before we leave Virginia, I don't want anybody to get the idea that we have done an extensive history tour. We've seen a good bit of history, but not extensive. You must see Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, and if you look behind that arbor right there, you can see the Potomac River, because it's right on the Potomac. That's a great place to be. You should certainly see the surrender point at Appomattox Courthouse. This little gravel road was a dividing line. The Union forces drew up on this side, and the Confederate forces came up on this side for hours and laid down their arms and moved on, and laid down their arms and moved on as the surrender progressed at Appomattox Courthouse. And then out at Manassas, there were two battles fought out in this area, and one place has the famous statue of Stonewall Jackson, because it is here at Manassas that he was given that name. There stands Jackson like a stone wall. Another place I'd like you to see is Patrick Henry's home at Red Hill. This is the outside of it. It's a very little home, and he is buried on this site as well. This is the inside, and I do not show you the grave, because remember, these are just other places that you should be going to see. And then many people do not realize that Jefferson also had a home down on the southern edge of Lynchburg called Poplar Forest. Restoration work is still going on here, but it is a rather unique place and well worth a visit, especially if you admire Mr. Jefferson. Then, while you're in the Williamsburg area, it's just a short haul over to the James River to see this place, which is Carter's Grove. Carter's Grove was visited by both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and they tell some stories there about the two of them. Then on the same road where Monticello is located by Charlottesville is Ashlawn Highland, this place. And this is James Monroe's house. And I think I show the garden. Yeah, here's part of the garden there at the Monroe house. Then one other place I'd like you to see is down on the northern edge of the James River, and it's Berkeley Plantation. This is the house, and here is the walk down to the James River. That's my wife walking ahead, and as soon as she gets where you see the little opening in the trees all the way at the end, she'll be on the banks of the James River. Now, going back a few years, and this is from postcards, I think, this is Abraham Lincoln visiting the Union Army commanded by McClellan here at Berkeley Plantation. He went to see McClellan twice, and on the same plantation, back over in this little bunch of trees here with the little bench out here, this is the place where Brigadier General Butterfield composed the bugle call that we call taps today. It was supposed to put soldiers to sleep, and the soldiers called it Butterfield's Lullaby. And then we move up to Virginia. To Washington, D.C. Sorry about that. The Jefferson Memorial. Now, the Jefferson Memorial, on this particular trip, we will not visit it because it is being repaired, and our guide said there was scaffolding all over the place. So we will not go there. But I wanted you to see, this is the mall. I wanted you to just get an idea. This is the Capitol up here, a little idea about how it's set up. The Lincoln Memorial is all the way down here. The Washington Monument is here. This is the ellipse, and the White House is back in here. These are the tidal basins. This is the Jefferson Memorial here, and this is the new Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial right over here on the same tidal basin with the Jefferson Memorial. Now, right over in here is the Vietnam Memorial. Remember, the Lincoln Memorial is here, the Vietnam Memorial, and over this side is the Korean Memorial right here. And that's all I'm going to do with the map. But that'll give you an idea and orient you as we go forward here. The Union Station, and it still is a Union Station, trains still run from there, but that has sort of become the visitors, tourists, sort of central place. And you can go out from there, and tour buses come there and all that type of thing. That first picture was very close to it, and this is the Union Station itself. And we're going out for 4 hours with a DC tour guide to see something of the Capitol. This is the Supreme Court. And this is the Capitol. And then because we could not go there, I wanted to show you a view that I took a number of years ago standing on the Capitol steps looking towards the Washington Monument. Our tour guide looked over at the Capitol as we passed, and she said, "My gosh, the lines are already so long, we would kill about 2 hours of my time with you just trying to get into the Capitol." So we let that one go. And then here is the Library of Congress. This is where Jefferson's books went, and they're still there. They form the basis for the Library of Congress. The National Gallery of Art, with its dome, is a neat place. And then the National Archives, and I didn't want to just show you the outside of the building, so with an older picture I went inside, and this is where you can see your Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. Now the Declaration of Independence does not have much that you can read on it. You can try your luck, but there's not much actually visible. And then I had never been to Ford's Theater before. I really didn't want to because of the way I view Abraham Lincoln, but I had decided the next time I went to Washington to go to it, and this is that next time. This is the outside of Ford's Theater, and inside this is the box where Abraham Lincoln sat and was shot. Here's a closer view of it. And then the house was closed when we were there, but right across the street from Ford Theater is where they took Abraham Lincoln, and it was in this house where Abraham Lincoln died. The flags here are hanging on the FBI building as we're making our way around the city. And if you remember this little memorial in memory of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, this is on one of the streets downtown. Can't remember which one, but that's all that FDR said he wanted as a memorial. Now remember that when I start showing you the FDR memorial. This is a Navy memorial, and they were having, way off to the right there, they were having some sort of ceremony that day, but it might be something they do every day, I'm just not sure. And then here is the Washington Monument with work progressing on it. If you saw some of the views from the Capitol when they do the patriotic programs from there on PBS and the like, you might have seen it with all this scaffolding on it. It's quite a sight. It's quite a sight at any time, as a matter of fact. And then we went over to the Franklin D. Roosevelt Memorial on the edge of that tidal basin. And I sort of have this one labeled in my notes, those who have too little, and the fireside chats. And then water is used quite a bit in here. Notice the water over there. And the saying there has to do with the Civilian Conservation Corps, the old CCC, and the creation of it, and all the work that they did all over the nation, that you can still see today, steps that you still walk on and so forth, were done by the Civilian Conservation Corps. This part has to do with civil rights. And then this is the one with FDR with a cape on, and that is his little dog Fowler. And then here is FDR. Now we had two ladies from the Cuyahoga Falls Historical Society that were with us, and they had asked me to take their picture. So I chose to take their picture where Fowler was there. That is Babette Robinson on the right, and Liz Cross, the curator of our historical museum, because I'm a member of that too, with Fowler. And Babette says to me, well, John, you probably aren't going to use that picture. I said, oh, yes, I am. I can imagine FDR sitting there, and these two ladies, steeped in history, do all sorts of work dealing with history, showing how much they loved his little dog. I couldn't possibly leave that out. And then here is the funeral procession. And probably somewhere, or at least about 3/5 of what FDR accomplished is because of this lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. So she is there also. And then water, water, water. A lot to do with the memorial is water. And then walking out to the left from that picture right to the edge of the tidal basin, I was able, with a long lens, to take this picture of the Jefferson Memorial. But I think I took 2 pictures of it. Yeah. Oh, here's an older picture when the cherry blossoms are blooming. And then because we did not go to it because of all the scaffolding in it, I wanted you to see that beautiful statue of Jefferson inside of it. Now, probably I should have done this when we were across the river in Virginia, but it seems more appropriate to do it from D.C. here. That is the Arlington House across there. That is the old Robert E. Lee home. And that means that we're at Arlington Cemetery. It's over there. And I'm taking some old pictures of the graves there. And then the guard at the grave of the unknown soldier. And then looking, I really like this picture because you're looking from Arlington Cemetery. You can still see many of the tombstones here. And here is the bridge across. This is the Lincoln Memorial here. And you can see the Washington Monument here and the Capitol building all the way down here. And here's the here's the Potomac River coming through here. This is the Federal Reserve building. This is where Alan Greenspan spends his time. At the Vietnam Memorial, we went immediately to the woman's part because this is the new part. It's a nurse's statue, and they're trying to do something for this poor, dying soldier. And the expressions, you can't really see the expressions real good because it's a dark statue, but the expressions on the faces are very, very good. So I wanted to show you that first. Now here is the older part, which is the wall. And something that was left there. Now all of these things are saved. I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing with them, but they're all saved and are picked up every day. From there. And here's a close-up of some of the names. And then the wall and the people. I have kept all of the people out. They're off to the left, and all you see in the wall are the reflections of those same people. And then up on the hill, and I'm getting up there now, you're looking down at the wall. My back is right towards this statue of the 3 men, and this has been there from the inception of the memorial. And then before we left this monument, here's another one of the men. Before we left this monument, I wanted to show you something else. See, here are the men here, and here's the wall down here. I wanted to show you the lady who did that sculpture of the nurses. This is her. And you might know her better because she is also the one who did Sacagawea on our new $1 coin. A very talented lady. Here's the Sacagawea coin. That's a picture. I now have a few of the coins. And then to the Lincoln Memorial. See, you're walking now. The Vietnam Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial are very close together. And inside of it is the statue of Lincoln and a close-up. You have to be careful in here because there's a lot of scaffolding in here as well. And then a view from the steps on looking towards the Washington Monument, from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Now, going off to the right from that picture is this, the Korean War Memorial. first a view here of the soldiers, and then the flag that flies up there, and then some more of the soldier statues. These statues are supposed to represent all of the services, and you're supposed to be able to tell who's what by what kind of weapon they're carrying. And then they also have a reflecting wall, but in their wall a number of images have already been placed, and then you also get reflections of people as they walk along. And up by that flag, a plaque down in the cement says this: "Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met." 1950, Korea. Now we've moved on and we're over at the Kennedy Center. That's the outside of it, and I have two inside pictures of it, of the flags. There's a statue, a bust of John Kennedy in there, and I got a good picture of it, but I don't really like it, so I didn't leave it in the set. I just show these two of the inside of Kennedy Center. And right within seeing distance of the front of the center is the famous Watergate building. And then the next one is the Department of the Interior. Now in the White House, they had this tent out. They were setting up some kind of special function of some sort. Oh, you could see Secret Service people. Our tour guide was real good at pointing out Secret Service people. You're not supposed to be able to tell them, but she could tell everyone. But I dipped back into some of my other pictures to give you a somewhat better view of the White House than with that tent in front of it. Now, I know nothing about this picture except that I really like those circular windows. I think they're kind of neat. But I do like lion statues, and so you get to see this one over by the Union Station. Now, before we leave the Union Station, I wanted you to see at least one picture inside. So I took several, and I chose this one to leave in. This is the time that I went in to the Capitol and took pictures of those paintings in the rotunda and so forth. So this one dips back a few years. But it's a nice picture of the dome and everything, and I wanted to show you two of the pictures that I took while I was there. This painting is presenting the Declaration of Independence. I have seen this. This is Jefferson here, and this is the committee. And they're presenting it to the whole, and now they will start the arguing. I have seen any number of places where this is labeled the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it absolutely is not. And this is a painting that hangs in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. And this chandelier, my wife likes chandeliers, so I sort of like them too. I put pictures of them in from time to time, and this was hanging there. But I want you to see this other painting as well, and this is the surrender at Yorktown. Now, Cornwallis pleaded that he was sick, and so he sent his emissary to actually do the surrender. And here is inside the dome in the Capitol. Now, as we go out of D.C., we see the Potomac River in a natural setting. No houses, no high-rises, no exhibit halls or anything. And then when we find ourselves all the way over into this kind of scenery, we know we're in Maryland, and that is the end of our little journey into history in Virginia and DC.